recall. So and now that we're on, I'll straight up. There has been some rumors that have been out there in the community that you've kind of been a little bit behind the recall, and I know we've been talking for a little bit about it, but I mean, as far as our listeners go, I mean, you,
No, it's not true. I have nothing to do with it.
yeah,
Why would I put myself through that, for one?
Hey folks, we've got over 100 pre-owned vehicles with 20 of them under $20,000 that are safe, sound, and affordable. So shop us online at BillKramerGM.com. 6 decades, 3 generations, 1 tradition.
I did hear rumblings about it, and I was like, I don't want to hear nothing about it, because that way if someone asked me, I'd be like, I don't know anything about it, you know. Me and Zach Detweiler, we used to talk. We haven't talked in a long time. I can't remember the last time I've talked to him.
yeah.
So yeah, if you really want to know, go ask Zach and be like, hey, Jamie part of this? And I know he'll tell you. It's like, no, he had no part in this.
Yeah, it was very, very odd how that came about, and it's. I know that it has to do with the things that have gone on in Lynn Haven, which is kind of the reason why originally this podcast was set up so people were free to speak,
Right.
especially local politicians that the news gets it wrong, and you get 30 seconds to a minute, and they're just going to choose whatever they want to put up there anyway.
Right.
So, you get you on the record to talk about the things that have happened. And I know that during the election, it was like probably not a good time to bring a lot of that up. But, dude,
Right.
the election's over, and you've, you are the sitting commissioner. And so feel free to talk about anything that has happened. I mean, we can go back to the beginning if you want, because there was a lot of, I think, false information that's being put out in the community, especially on the Ricky Ramey situation, the Vicky Gaynor situation. And so why don't we start by go back to the first 4 years of sitting on the commission. Why did you want to sit on the commission? Why did you run?
I think that's a lot of people have the same reason. They want to make change. They want to be part of that change, and they feel like they're the ones that have the knowledge and tools to do that. And so that's why I ran. There was some things about the city I wasn't happy about, and one of them was the debt. I would dive into that going, how do we get this much debt into the city? Before the hurricane came, I think we were about almost $38 million of debt at the time. And if you look at historically what the debt used to be, it used to be a lot less. And so, yeah, there were some things I wasn't happy about what was going on with the city. And I actually talked to other people. I was like, hey, you should run. Because I know there's other people that are much better, that would be much better commissioner than me, because they're a lot smarter than me. They a lot better knowledge, a lot better speaker, things like that. And so, and normally those people are the ones that won't run for office,
Yeah.
And so when I bring it up to them, they're like, no, I don't want to do that, And then it turned around. It's like, well, why don't you run for office? And I'm like, well, that's not really what I was trying to accomplish here.
Yeah.
So I thought about it, and of course I talked to my wife, because if the spouse isn't on board, then there's no reason to do it. So thankfully, she has been very supportive of me, and I had some people that supported me, and I thought it was, and volunteer service has always been a big thing with me. That's one of the things you probably heard me when I campaigned about, my father. He was a volunteer fireman. He used to be a fire chief for the municipality he's from in upstate New York. And I just kind of see this as more of a service than anything else. And I think I have a lot to offer.
Yeah. So going through that first 4 years, watching, as a commissioner, have you ever seen any signs of corruption?
No. When you say corruption,
like actual corruption, not, I don't like.
You mean like stealing money?
Yeah.
No.
You mean like, I'm talking about actual corruption, not like you know, it's so funny because that word gets tossed around so much, and there's half truths that are put out there. You know, I think like one of them is right now a fraudulent receipt or something like that that apparently was filled out by Vicky, and like all this other stuff. I mean, there's all this types of bull crap that's out there, and it's like, dude, like this is all legal, and it's just like being somebody that you've sat there long enough now, like because we're talking about you're going on the next 4 years, like like is there? I want to know. I mean, and so do a lot of people because
So as far as anybody on the commission, I don't feel like anybody on the commission is stealing any money or taking any kickbacks. I don't believe that. So something I was going to say and I can't remember, but yeah, I don't see that going on. But back when you're talking about, a lot of times you hear the terms like good old boy or the establishment and things like that. I think the reason that comes out is, like you take the Ricky Ramey situation and how that was dealt with. I think a lot of people felt like the city wasn't being transparent about it. And there was definitely things that the city manager wasn't being transparent with us, especially at the beginning, because we didn't know anything about it until I think it was actually Valentine's Day. And the only reason I found out about it was on social media. And it was like, how did I find out about this before, anyone told us about it? And so when people see that, and they, at the beginning especially, they kind of wanted us to be silent about it. They didn't really want us to say anything, but I was the one that was the most outspoken about it. And I think they see that and they feel like, and I think this is what happens a lot of times in politics, not just here, it's all over the United States, is those relationships are developed, and people see those relationships and they start questioning, are they not making the right decision because of those relationships? And I think that's where a lot of those terms come out with the good old boy and the establishment and things like that. And then it might lead into, all right, they're corrupted, So that's why I asked, what are they corrupted? If it's like, as far as money and kickbacks and that, I don't feel like anybody on there is doing that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing, right? So, going into that recall, it's kind of like there's only like 3 reasons. Kendall, can you look this up real quick? How do you recall a mayor? Like what? Because I think there's only like 3 reasons you can recall a mayor. And I think
you got to have good justification.
Yeah,
you can't just say because, I don't like the person. You can't do that.
Well, and that was the thing about the statement that was made the other night by the guy that got up there and talked. It was like the whole thing was we have FBI documentation and we're tired of being. It was almost kind of like we're being oppressed. And then what was the terminology that was used was he referred to it as tyranny, tyrannical leadership. Tyrannical leadership. And I'm going, all right, man, like it's time to give you a little bit of a history lesson. Because I know he spoke a little bit about his dad or whatever. So I'll give you a history lesson. Like you go back to the 1770s and you have a government that is taxing you without representation, right? And then there's murders in the street by the military, and because that's how you're policing. That's tyranny,
right?
So, and I get it. Listen, I am. Do you think that Jesse falls in line with any of those things? I know I'm putting you on. I mean,
I think this is what people are tired of. I think the big one is public commentary. The way he talks to them during public commentary. And me and him, we have talked about that.
Really?
Yeah, as after that March 11th meeting, he wanted to sit down and talk. And we did. And we talked with the city attorney there to make sure that we weren't violating any sunshine laws, you know. But, and I told him that. I said, it's the interaction back and forth. Because the reason that it used to be public commentary was number 7, which put it after we gave our reports. After the mayor gave his report, the city commissioners, city manager, and city attorney all gave their reports. And what was happening was there was interaction back and forth. And anything you read about public commentary, whether it's a guide or a manual or whatever, they will tell you don't get involved in the back and forth. And the reason being is exactly what we're seeing in Lynn Haven. And you see it across the United States. All you got to do is YouTube it and see some of these meetings that go on where they get out of control. And it doesn't take very long for things to go down south and get out of control. So that's why you don't do that. So he had brought up about moving it to number 3, which would put public commentary before our reports. And I supported him on that, and I still support him on that. And by doing that, they can go up there, say what they want to say, ask whatever they want to, and then we can answer them during our reports. But if you see some of the meetings the way they're going, he's interacting with them back and forth, and I'm like, then you might as well just put it back to number 7 if you're going to interact back and forth, because it defeats the purpose. So, and I think that's caused a lot of the problems. And yeah, don't get me wrong, I don't envy the position of mayor. It's not an easy position. But there's a way that you interact with people. Yeah. You know, you want to make them feel welcome, make them feel like that you're listening to them. You know, you're not going to, me and you aren't going to agree on everything, but you know that I listen and I take people's feedback, and I think that's what they want. So I think that's a big part of it. Obviously, we've had some meetings that got a little out of control, and I think that's the other part. But I'm sure there's other stuff. I haven't even looked at the documents or whatever that they're accusing them of, so I have no idea.
There's all kinds of stuff that's out there. I mean, it's one thing after another. It's like every freaking week. Let's go ahead and complain about something. But the thing about it is you know, getting into those meetings though, and it is not easy being you guys, because you guys are like, it's so funny because and I see it now, and just a little taste of stuff, like you have people that love you one day, and because of something that's said or something that's voted on, then the next day you're a complete and total enemy.
Like the Ricky Ramey situation is a perfect example. Like,
yep, exactly.
When I was in the commission my first term, it came out during the federal indictment of the whole improper text message. Yeah. And I was not a fan of firing him over that. And there was multiple reasons. One, it happened, I think it was like 3 or 4 years prior to that. 2, is it considered a fireable offense? That's an opinion, you know. And so yeah, I was not a fan of firing. I do felt like he needed to be, you know, written up or disciplined, which he was. He got a letter of reprimand for it. And so yeah, I felt that was fair. Yeah. So there was people that gave me a lot of flack for that, you know.
Well, it did seem like that, because there for a while, it's actually really funny, because before the Ricky Ramey situation, I was following local politics, you know, pretty regularly in Lynn Haven, and you had been attacked on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And then it was like, as soon as you spoke up and you're like, hey, accountability. And then it's like, then the people with pitchforks that were ready to roast you over a fire became like, hey, I want to bring dinner over to your house. You're my best friend now. And it's like, no, dude, like this is, and it's crazy to watch that stuff kind of unfold. But going back into the meeting situation, now listen, Jesse came on, and I told him straight to his face, I was like, man, I do not agree with how you have handled these situations. You're a grown man. You're going to handle it the way you want to handle it. But man, as a citizen, no, I don't agree with how you handled these particular situations.
Right.
and I don't think the way that you were treated was right, especially with how he brought up things from the past that had nothing to fucking do with anything that you were
Right.
talking about or anything that was going on at the time. So, but with that being said, and you're supposed to, it's so funny because people that are in leadership, you're always told all the time that, like, oh, you always have to have this level head. You always have to have this level head.
Right.
You can't be human. But like, there were posts that were coming out on these stupid freaking social media pages talking about his children. Then you got
Yeah, that's not right.
then you got a guy that's got his freaking local show, and he's talking about his wife now and about how oh, she's married to a narcissist, and this is what you see from an abusive person. It's like, now you're talking about the dude's family,
Right.
and
That's not right.
And you thought that wasn't going to get to a man that's sitting up there? No, dude, the guy, he's going to show his colors on how he feels when that's what's going on in the background. See, people don't talk about that.
Yeah.
They talk about that, but still doesn't make it right.
No, it's not right. I mean, I would never do that to someone else, it's just not right. Like, I know you had Jenna Halligus on here, and she talked about that, and I'm like,
horrible story.
that was horrible, And so even though there's certain people I might not be a big fan of, and they might be politicians, to do that's just wrong on so many levels. I would never do that.
Yeah, that is. But let's, because I don't think a lot of people know the story. So, and it's up to you. I mean, if you want to tell the story. So let's go back to why, because I've heard it from you. So the Ricky Ramey story was you ended up getting an email. No.
I
saw it on
found out on
social
social media. As soon as I found out, I looked at it and I went, "You got to be kidding me!"
Mm-hmm.
And so I immediately texted Vicky, and I said something to the effect of, and I had the snapshot of the summary from the Bay County court records showing there was a charge or whatever was on there. And I said, "Please tell me there's a different Ricky Ramey. There's more to the story." And he responded something to the effect of, "Yeah, there's definitely more to the story. If I knew that this was going to be such a big deal, I would have told you guys earlier," or something like that. And so within 5 minutes, Ricky Ramey called me. He gave me his side of the story. I'm not going to tell you. I haven't told anybody as far as our conversations. To me, that's just between me and him. And so yeah, he gave me his side of the story, and so it kind of went from there. So I didn't know if there was more after that you wanted to know.
Well, so the comments that have come out from, I do believe the mayor, and I could be wrong, was that you took matters into your own hands and you were trying to become your own investigator and you went to go do stuff. So
yeah, I went to Newbies and talked to the bartenders. Just kind of asked them.
Well, you're a sitting commissioner. I mean,
so I haven't today. I haven't seen anything that says I can't do that. Today, I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah, well, because it can't be tampering with an
evidence,
investigation or anything, because it's the whole fact of you're a sitting commissioner and you wanted to know, hey, I want to know what's going on because this is going to hit hard, and it hit hard on you guys really badly.
I did.
Still suffering repercussions from that time period.
And I'm I know I've been a big advocate about this whole thing, and I probably pushed it a little bit too far than I really wanted to. But I felt like I was on the island all by myself trying to fight this. And I know there's just certain things that there's one thing you get passionate about, but then there's ethical, moral stuff where it's like, I know this is wrong. I know it's wrong. And why are we doing this? Why is nobody else speaking up? And, if I'm wrong, then tell me I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm wrong.
I think it has a lot to do with accountability because of your career in the military.
Yeah.
When you were in the military.
So that was one of the reasons, a big thing. Have you ever been in a unit where there wasn't an accountability wasn't there where it should be, or there wasn't the discipline that was supposed to be there, right? Because usually we use the term discipline in the military, right?
Yeah, most of the time the disciplinary action is a little bit the punishment doesn't seem like it fits the crime sometimes. Sometimes
Right.
it feels like it's a little bit overboard, but it's to make sure that they make an example out of you because they want everybody else.
Have you ever seen it the other way around where there
No,
wasn't enough?
I
No?
never have. Nope.
Okay.
I never have. Not. Oh, you have?
Right.
Not where I not.
And I've seen what happens. I've seen what happens when not the right accountability or discipline happens. I've seen what happens.
Oh wait, you know what? I do know. No, you're right. I did see it. There's a guy who tested positive for cocaine. We thought he was going to get kicked out,
Mhm.
and he didn't even get a field grade Article 15 or anything. He didn't
Wow.
get he got unscathed. That was one time.
Was it like a legal reason?
I don't
'Cause they didn't
know.
read
I
him his
just
rights
know
or
this was a
something,
guy that
or-
was in a different. He was in a different company, in like his platoon.
Yeah, I don't see how you get away with that because I know in the Air Force.
Yeah, he got away with it. He had a special. Now he did have a court martial, but it was a special. It was a special. It was a special hearing,
Hmm.
and he went to it, and he came out like no extra duty, no Article 15, nothing on his record. Like,
So what happened to the unit after that? Because there's a lot of negative impact when stuff like that happens. Now, something like that might be a little different, but when it's a culture,
yeah.
there's a lot of.
I'm
bad
pretty
things
sure.
happen.
I think bad things happened to him from other people though that were in his platoon because they were like
Yeah.
there was some negative.
So normally,
there was
when-
accountability, but it wasn't from the higher ups. It was
So when there's a lack of discipline or a lack of accountability,
Yeah.
right? The morale goes down,
Yep.
communication goes down, there's tension, so there's not as much as that camaraderie that you used to have. And so when you have those type of situations, it's hard for a department or agency to flourish and just, become the best agency they can. So, and this is what I've told people. I said, if it was just this one situation with a newbies situation that happened, I probably could have came to terms with it. I don't know. It's hard to say, what would happen if this happened, but I probably still would disagree with it, but I probably could still come to terms with it. But this isn't the only situation. There was multiple situations.
Yeah.
So I don't want to beat a dead horse because I've already done what I could do. It's done. Nothing I can do about it. And I've said what I said. I did everything I felt that I could. And I was unsuccessful.
Yeah. So now that we knocked that one out, I'm going to go to the next one. And I know you were asked this at the Republican debate or the Republican forum. They don't do debates. At the forum that they did, it was asked to everybody that was up there if you guys were going to fire Vicky Gaynor. That was one of the questions, I do believe. It was asked. And do you...
I don't remember.
Well, it was I wish we could pull it up. We might be able to pull it up. Yeah. It was one of the last questions it was asked.
Yeah.
The response that you gave was pretty like I think it was pretty spot on. And I'll cut this out if that's not a thing, but I'm pretty sure it was asked because Judy Tender, I remember her response and said that she thinks that she needs to wait out her that she feels and what she said from the dais she said that she thinks there's 2 years left on her contract. Just let her finish out her 2 years and go from there.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it? Just taking it.
I'd like to go a different direction. I mean, I did my evaluation. Anybody could do a public records request and see my evaluation on her. And it's not just her. There are other things I brought up that I feel like anytime I bring something up to try to bring more transparency, it's always pushback. And it's like, I'm trying to make things better. And I just don't understand that. Because normally when you try to do that, normally they're pretty receptive of that. So that's one of the things I struggle with. But there's other things besides that, But yeah, I personally would like to go a different direction.
Okay. So knocking out some of these rumors, and it looks like, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, right? I mean, firing the manager, firing Ricky Ramey, your the stance on like Jesse. I mean, I think that this recall thing, to me, being a citizen of Lynn Haven, Jesse's got 2 years left. I mean, unless you're trying to make an example of, hey, we'll remove you if you don't let the citizens
Right.
run meetings the way that they want to, fine. But at this point, it's kind of like, and the things that go into I really don't think that it has a shot, because I don't believe that they're going to get the numbers that they want. I just don't believe that. But let's move on.
I'll say this,
Okay.
because I'm sure you heard my speech when I got back installed as a commissioner. And one of the things I brought up was I got this time running around was a lot different than the first time. And I received a lot different feedback this time than the first time. And I will say that was the number one thing I got, was the dissatisfaction with the mayor. That was the top thing I got, feedback from the residents. Now, I agree with you as far as the recall. I don't know. It's up to the air whether it's going to get successful or not. But I think the only way it can become successful is if you go door to door. I don't know how they're planning on doing. I know they got the website where you fill out the information and you can request a petition to be sent to your in the mail, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're going to plan on doing some events where people come in and be like, hey, here's the form, fill it out. But if you plan to do that, I don't think you'll get enough. But if you go door to door, you have a team that goes out door to door, maybe, but in the end, it's going to be up to the residents. It's not going to be up to me. It's going to be up to the residents. So it doesn't really necessarily mean, matter what I feel. It's a matter what residents feel.
Well, not just that, you're going to have to prove whatever portion of what he read off earlier is to be true. And sorry, I hate to tell you, but saying I don't like that he responds back to us in public commentary is not one of those things that are on the list.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get it, because, I have gone and I've spoken at the podium before, and, dude, I'm a little bit, I think I'm a little bit better at it now, but, but, at the time, going up there and speaking up to a panel of people, and you're down here and it's like, well, I'm really small, and then I'm speaking, and then he speaks up and talks over you, and then you lose your train of thought. That's a thing, and it happened to me. It was actually about the Ricky Ramey thing, because it was the whole thing of, like, we should have known about this sooner as being citizens. And, now that I look back on that now, it was kind of like the way my view on things are a little bit, they're different. I think that, yes, the commission should have known about it. Mm-hmm. And yes, there should have been some sort of disciplinary action that was taken. And there was, which, before we move on to positive things, because I wanted to get rid of all of the drama.
That's all good.
At the beginning, going back to the disciplinary thing, I asked Jesse when he came on, I said, do you believe that the action that was taken to Ricky because of this situation, do you believe that it was sufficient? And so I'm going to ask you the same question.
I don't believe it was sufficient. I think he should have been fired. Because, as you go up in certain positions, the higher you go, more responsibility you got. And he knew going to that position what his responsibilities were. You got to make sure your stuff is in order, You're one of the key leadership positions of the city, especially when you're enforcing the law. So, and it's not, like I said, this wasn't just a one-time situation.
My argument on it, and which has been, and was that it didn't happen. It happened late at night. He wasn't in a company vehicle. He was in his own
Correct.
vehicle. And it happened on his own accord. And he did make the situation right. The insurance company paid out, and he, everybody was made whole of the situation between him and the, the guy that he hit his car. Since then, I've talked to several people, and then it's kind of come back around to, well, but and it's like, I don't want to hold somebody at a higher standard than what I would be held to as a person. But then I think about my military service and I go, okay, I can understand why that would be a thing, because it would be like, when you hold that position that's that way, like when
Right.
you're at that high of a level of in the public eye, it's not necessarily the crime that was committed, which it's the outlook of now, the city has now because of those actions.
Right.
And
I-
Lynn Haven already looks bad because of all the corruption that was, when we, the mayor, getting convicted and all of that stuff. Like, we already have a bad look in
We
the
got that
county.
black cloud over us.
Yeah. And now we had something like this.
You know what's
And-
funny is, not really funny, but the day before that, I think I had a sit down with Vicky, and I made the comment of, feel like that black cloud is finally going away from us. And then the next day, when I found out about the Ricky Ramey situation. For real.
That
And I was like,
Ooh.
So, but back to what you were talking about. So do you think when someone's in a higher position like that, they should be held to a higher standard?
I've had to be reminded here recently. Then yeah, because when you're held to a higher standard. Yeah.
Because when I sat down and talked with Vicky about this, she's like, "Well, I have to hold him to the same standard as everybody else." I said, "No, you need to hold him to a higher standard."
Yeah. The guy that cuts the grass, it's a position that's needed.
Mhm.
But I'm saying the guy who's in lawn care for the city
Right.
is not held to the same standard as the guy who enforces the law.
Correct.
And
Correct.
so, yes, I understand the point that.
And that was the other thing was when I asked her, and I brought up those 5 examples. And, it's all on the commission meeting, so I'm not going to say anything that's new. But when I brought up the censoring of the city manager, I brought up the 5 different things. I think I brought up 5. It was 4 or 5. But out of the 5 things I brought up with her, she agreed with 4 of them that he made a bad judgment call. So I asked her, I said, so why is this not enough to let him go? And her reason was 2 reasons. One, because he's such a great asset to the city. And I have never attacked him on that. I've always said that I believe he's knowledgeable and knows how to do his job, and he does good at it because we got another accreditation for the department. So obviously he knows how to do all that. And 2, you're affecting person's livelihood. And when I got those 2, I knew I was in trouble. I was like, ugh.
Yeah, the way that
That's-
would be explained would probably see my whole thing. And one of the things that I had said to Sam was, I said, demote him. Like, freaking send him back to being a fucking beat cop.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you know what? You made a mistake. Eat your mistake. Take that pay cut. That's what happens in the military. I mean,
But so did Sam have that conversation with her about it? I don't know for sure, but I get the feeling
yeah.
he didn't. But when I brought up the censor thing, he brought that up. And I said, well, it sounds like you disagree with the decision of the city manager, if that's the case.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, Sam's pretty stoic about stuff with the city with me. Because, well, I got one of these, and
Right,
he can't. He's like, I gotta do it. we're gonna talk about baseball today. That's normally how that goes. But when I did, yeah, when I had,
And I know that we all relate to, it's a lot of stress
yeah,
being a commissioner, and you don't get paid very much to do it. And I don't do it for the pay, obviously. I do it because I want to make Lynn Haven better than it already is.
but I remember having the talk with him when I said just demote him down to a beat cop and let him suffer in that position for a little while and make him earn his way back up the chain so he can go back and remember a day what it was like. And chances are, if you're demoting somebody and you're taking away their pay, I mean, like I said, that's what goes on. Like, is it, I know somebody pretty personally, but that's very close to me that has been demoted. Yeah. That has been that gets demoted from a position that you're in, and you have rank taken away from you, and now the issue that was between you and somebody else, now that person's your boss.
I heard that's pretty common in the Army.
It's very, very common in the
Yeah.
Army. Yeah, it's very common in the Army.
Yeah.
But so like when you have something like that, it makes you go back, and I think that would have been like the perfect way to, because then it's like, well, he's going to go out and he's going to get another job, but he probably wouldn't stay with the police force anyway because you're used to getting paid a certain amount of money. Now you lose that pay, and now the guy that I trained is now my boss, and
Right.
like that right there, I think would have been. I don't know if but this is me as a citizen. I don't know if I'm down to just fire him for that because I get it. It made the city look bad. It made the city look.
When I went door to door, that was probably the second biggest thing that people complained about was the Ricky Ramey situation.
Really?
And I had people literally, and this is where it gets difficult sometimes, but I literally had people that were physically upset about it.
Mm.
And they're like, I can't, and this is where it drives me nuts because they lump us all together a lot of times. It's like, you guys didn't do your job and you're part of the problem in that, right? So I've been to some houses where, yeah, you guys should have done this. And I let them go. I let them go and say their thing. And I would just say something like, man, there was a commissioner up there that really pushed for him to get fired, And like, really, who was that? I said, me. That was me. And then they realized like, oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
So, and I hate bringing up the past, but a lot of residents are not over it. I think some residents want it to be done and over with and move on, and I totally get it, and I'm the same way.
Yeah.
That's why I haven't brought it up. I don't think I brought it up since I brought up the censor. When I brought up the censor, the city manager, and I knew it was going to fail.
So
But I wanted to make sure everyone knew where I stood and it'd be done, and it's a done deal. And that is one regret I had, is the first time I was going to do it, and I decided to pull it back. I should have never pulled it back. I should have just went with it at that time and be done with it.
So the censure of the city manager, explain what all that entails, because I'm kind of.
So it was so a lot of this was a learning experience for me.
Yeah.
Not just this, but a lot of the other stuff. And so at first I wanted to do a vote of no confidence for Ricky Ramey. Well, that's not legal. Can't do that because we're not his boss. We're Vicky's boss, who's the boss of the police chief. So I said, okay, I want to do a vote of no confidence on the city manager. And when I did some more research, I realized that's not really what I'm trying to do. Because a vote of no confidence is basically there's either multiple actions that you disagree with the city manager, or you just disagree, you don't approve of their overall performance. And normally it's the first step or the step to fire that individual.
Yeah.
So the more I looked at it and realized, and the thing is, there's not a whole lot about vote of no confidence and vote of censor as far as local governments. It's more of a federal government and state government thing. But when I looked up vote to censor, and I even had to get with the city attorney to make sure I understood it, was you just disagree with a single action that the person took. And that's all that was. It was nothing to try to fire her or anything. It was just a vote. They do it in Congress all the time, where they're like, I disagree with the actions of this person, so I vote to censor. And that's all it is. If it gets approved, they're censored and it's done.
Yeah. Nothing
happens to them. So there's no repercussions. It was just, I just wanted on the record that I disagree with her decision on this. And it's on the record.
Well, that was the other thing, right? Like there was a portion where it was just a vote to discuss it. I know you got it seconded by Sam seconded it just for it to be a discussion, but it still got shut down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was
no, that one never, I don't think it ever got seconded. If I remember right, because there was no public commentary on it, and that was a big thing that residents were upset about.
I was at the meeting. It was just for it to be brought up in conversation. Sam seconded the motion.
I don't think he
the
did.
Mayor got, oh yeah, I remember it. Because the mayor he looked over at him like, what the heck is going on? It was I mean, it was one of those first meetings. So
it wasn't the vote to censor when it was
no.
Yeah,
This was I'm sorry. So
yeah. It was a different one. Because I don't remember that.
No. It wasn't the censure one. No, it was the one just to talk about the situation.
Yeah.
Because
see what I mean? They didn't want us to talk.
They didn't want you guys to freaking talk, which was kind of interesting in itself. And I mean, I'm not picking.
So you
sides,
can understand how that's a struggle, right?
Yeah, and that was one of the things, that was kind of like, okay, you got one commissioner up there that wants to hear that wants to just bring it up, and then you got the other one, and he's just like, you know what, the public needs to hear about what they need to hear from all this. And it was like a vote, and Judy, I think, was that the night Judy Vandergriff, she took her microphone, slammed it away because she was just like, no.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. Well, that's the one where, and it was just like, why? What? And I get it. So the argument behind it now, so Jesse, when I had him on, the argument is that the more that we keep talking about it, Ricky's case keeps getting built. And it was like, we didn't want him to build up this lawsuit case, to be like, it was like, hey, just shut up. Don't talk about it. The city attorney has already said, which I am not a fan of the city attorney that you had with Dobos.
Oh, Kevin
Obos, yeah. I was not a fan of him because it seemed like he was misleading some things here and there. I don't know.
Yeah, because there was some other stuff that happened that didn't get relayed to me or the mayor because of him.
Well, that's what Jesse said when he came on.
And we didn't. I don't think he knew, and I don't think I knew until later.
Yeah,
and it was like, why? I mean, I don't understand that.
Jesse said that there were some things that they did not relay to you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I was like, and that could have alleviated probably. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Hey, Will, I'm checking to see if you have everything ready for the celebration.
There's more I want to say, but I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, no problem.
But back to what you're talking about, I think you were talking about with they didn't want to say anything because it might sue the city for wrongful termination and that, right? Well, this isn't for me, but have you seen the video with the labor attorney where I asked a question about could it be justifiable if Ricky Ramey, if it wasn't just this, if you look at just the civil citations and all these things he did before this, could that be a viable reason to fire him? Have you seen that?
Man, dude, it's So
I know,
a lot of
I
this
know a lot has happened.
Yeah, well, not only that, it was actually, it wasn't like it was just yesterday either. I mean, a lot
It's
of
been
this,
a long
it's been a
time.
while ago, but go ahead and like,
So I asked him that. Actually, we can bring it up on video. If you
yeah,
wanna bring it
yeah.
up.
Can we bring that up real
Just
quick?
look up Lynn, what I got it. Jamie Warrick Commissioners, or Lynn Haven Commissioner, Jamie Warrick, or something like that on YouTube. And it's one of the videos that just has that portion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to tighten. I couldn't tighten it anymore. Probably because I'm weak.
No. I'll be anxious to see this. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's.
So you asked the labor attorney.
I asked the labor attorney if, well, you'll see it here in a second.
All right. Yeah, anything that you want him to pull up, he can pull up documents, he can pull up video
Yeah.
footage, anything, all of that. It all gets.
You find it?
Is it on your page?
That's on YouTube. Yeah. There's one with a question about Ramey. Yep, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do have one more question.
We've been having some technical issues tonight. We normally don't have these problems. Normally is, but we've changed so much. Well, it's like one of those things because it's like a hobby. So you'll sit there and you'll be like, oh, I got this new cool thing that I want to add, to the setup. And then you add it and then it just screws everything else up.
So I do have one more question. I know this one, the criminal one's still open, but then the civil citations, right?
Oh, is this a pre-commission meeting?
Commissioner Peebles has brought it up about we're holding the police department heads to a higher standard, especially the police chief, since they're the enforcement of the law. And someone got civil citations, but then not just civil citations, but other reasons that might have brought negative publicity to the city. It could, I can't remember the question I had, but that could be a viable reason to terminate somebody.
It could be. Yes, that would be within the discretion of the city manager to make that determination.
So he does have civil citations that he has paid, and there have been prior actions to this that have bring negative light to the city, and us as the commission could take action on that.
It's a complicated analysis. First of all, yes, there have been prior citations. I've not personally verified that they've been paid. I've got no reason to dispute that. I just don't know that as a fact. When we're looking at off-duty conduct, and I think what you're alluding to is it's generally referred to as conduct unbecoming a government official.
Right.
Yes, that can be a bona fide avenue to take disciplinary action, but off-duty conduct has to be more scrutinized than on-duty conduct. But yes, it could theoretically be, and again, that would be within the management discretion of your city attorney.
Okay.
Or excuse me, your city manager.
Right. Thank you. So how do you read that?
Man, dude, so here's the thing, man.
I know I kind of babbled on
we
trying to get my
fucking-
question out, but
we live in such a soft society now where people can't just say what they need to say.
because here's the thing, they kept
It's,
saying the criminal charge out, you can't do anything, can't do anything, you can't do anything, right? And I asked them that specific question for a reason.
Yeah.
So how do you read that?
Well, these attorneys, man. Like, well, theoretically, in this world, like, dude, you know the situation that's fucking going on. Just answer the damn question. Like, can it be done or can't it be done? That's what you ask. So, like, coming from that military mindset, right? Like, one of the things that I've always hated, even like for the very brief time that I actually had soldiers that worked under me, and it was always like, dude, quit it. Like, I asked you a question, just answer the damn question. Quit giving me all these damn hypotheticals all over the place. Like, you asked him a question, he didn't want to answer it, which tells me, and I don't get that. I mean,
So, because I'm trying to remember what you brought up earlier that kind of stirred this, but because it kept going and saying, well, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this,
Yeah.
right? But then I asked a question,
and then he says you
he's
can.
like, oh yeah, you
Oh.
can. But yeah, there's other stuff involved with it. It's going to be under the discretion of the city manager. Yep, it is. And she decided not to. So she could have. And she agreed with 4 of the 5 things that I brought up that he made a bad judgment call. So at what point do you go and say, all right, enough?
No,
I mean, now you could look at them all separately, right?
yeah.
With the exception of the newbies one, which that one's a hard one to get over. But if you look at them separately, it's like, okay, is it really a fireable offense? But when you put them all together, there's a history there. That's what I'm trying to get at. And it's like, how much longer do we allow someone to get away with these things until we take proper action?
I'm trying to remember those. There used to be, it's like 5 basic principles of engagement or something like that. I was running through it in my head, and it was like, first time something happens, an anomaly. Second time is coincidence, and third time is a pattern.
Yeah.
You've heard this before, and
Yeah, because everybody keeps saying, don't worry, he's going to screw up again. It's like, it's not a matter of, I'm not hoping for him to screw up again. It's like, just take the right action. And
Well,
if we can't take the right action with this, then what other things are we not taking the right actions on?
And there's no doubt in my mind that being a city manager is probably really difficult.
It is.
And so
That's why they get the pay and benefits that they do. They get very well compensated.
But from what I'm seeing there, and this is not an attack on Jesse, but it is kind of calling a spade because this was a discussion that was had with an attorney that is telling you like what's in the purview of what you
Right.
And so
we can't make the city manager fire the police chief. We can't.
And so that right there is the reason why I just think that whole thing, it kind of gets blown out of the water about like, well, can't talk about it, don't want to build a lawsuit. Well, you can't build a lawsuit if you're fired for the right thing.
Right.
So I understand your point of view on it, but it looks, and the way that I've always said it because we've had several people on the show. I mean, I'm not strayed away from the Ricky Ramey topic or Jesse Nelson, and normally I'll sit there and I'll say, listen, I sat down with Ricky. I invited him on the show to come and speak. And he was very respectful. He was very nice to me. I can tell you that he's taking care of. I feel like that. Yes, you can have the argument all day long where the city is safe, which I have made that argument, and I have said.
And like I said, I never attacked him on that part.
I think he's done a good job in leadership as far as that goes, but his personal life, yeah, man, dude. But again, this particular situation. Well, and here's the thing. So I got a question for you. I mean, there was no reason for him to do it. In a way, Ricky could kind of be upset with the city manager as well for not notifying you guys. I don't know if he is or isn't, but because of that, he could kind of look at the situation too and be like, "Yo, I told you about this. Why didn't you?" Because do you guys get reports from Ricky?
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
So
there's
there's
contact?
like a summary of what happened on the different shifts.
Yeah.
It's not everything that happened, but it's like highlights.
So I
you know.
guess the question is
And we don't, I don't share that with anyone, but I believe the reason and the purpose behind it is so it kind of gives us, the commission, kind of what the police department is doing, what kind of issues are they dealing with, what kind of issues are going on in Lynn Haven, and, we can see certain trends that are going on, and then we could reach out to them and be like, hey, what are we doing about this? This is obviously an issue,
So I guess where I was going with that though is Ricky on the level where when this happened, he could have notified you guys?
It's not up to him to notify us.
Yeah. Well, that's my point.
It would be up to him to notify his boss, which is
Exactly.
the city manager, which I believe he did.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive he did that.
Well, that's why I'm saying what I'm saying, because I said
I see what you're saying.
because of the entire heat that came on the whole situation, and now they're saying, well, she didn't tell. In a way, he could even look at her and be like, why didn't you tell him? Because I told you about it. I let you know about all this. Why don't they know about it? Like I told you.
So it makes you wonder what other things are out there that I don't know about.
Yeah.
So, it goes back to what I talked about at the beginning. When there's a lack of discipline or a lack of accountability, what happens? There's tension, there's lack of communication, morale goes down, a lot of things, a lot of bad things can happen.
Yeah, because I've been learning a lot about like politics. I think I've had on like
Yeah.
and now when I have people on and they talk about certain situations, and a lot of these people are always like crying corruption.
And
Karen's out there, but it's really what it comes down to is miscommunication on a lot of shit. And at least that's what it looks like. I don't think that everybody's just trying to cover things up all the time. I think that Vicky knew about this situation and she was just kind of like, his insurance company's gonna handle it.
Yeah, I thought that was just gonna.
Don't worry about it.
But isn't that bad?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, even the response
Yes.
to her response to my text saying, if I knew this was going to be such a big deal, I would have told you. And it's like, no, you should have told me regardless. Should have told us regardless.
But has she denied that? Like, if you were to ask her that, be like, hey,
I don't think she denies that.
I think she knows. Well, I mean, if she doesn't think that it was wrong, she's wrong. But if she thinks that it was okay to like, I thought this, but I think it's a valuable lesson, like for anybody like that works in government, and even for Vicky herself to like, and she should have known better, because this is a small town. You didn't think that anybody was gonna freaking find out about it? Seriously?
Yeah.
Seriously?
There's something else I was going to say, but yeah, you're right. The city manager position, in my opinion, is the most important position of the whole entire city.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why you have to make sure that you have someone with all these. I mean, not just anyone can do that position. Not an easy.
I'm glad you brought that up. What do you think about the pay?
Well,
this is something she's attacked on consistently.
Here's the issue I have with it, because it's supposed to be based on merit, right? Okay. Were you deserving of a pay raise? I think that's really the question. And my answer is no. If you look and if you read my evaluation, you'll kind of more understand of why I felt that way, But there's a lot of other things that are going on where I'm like her car allowance, and I got pushback on that. She was already getting an increase in her car allowance. When did we vote on it? Was it the beginning of it was the prior fiscal year?
Yeah.
But we never voted on it. But they said, yes, you did. I said, well, when did we vote on it? And the answer was, well, when you voted on the budget.
Yeah.
But just because you approve it, when you approve the budget, make sure that you are you're fiscally responsible and you have it in the budget. But that doesn't mean that you took care of it contractually. You still got to change the contract. So it's things like that that I'm seeing red flags going, how is it that this is okay and we're okay with this? This is not right, you know? With the overtime pay, same thing. That was a whole sunshine law violation there, you know?
Explain it how it was a sunshine law violation.
So, and unfortunately, I missed the email, but an email went out from Jennifer Hodges asking if we approve of her getting overtime for working Martin Luther King Day. You can't do that. That has to be voted on by the commission.
Really?
Yes. Well, that's why they call it the sunshine. Everything you talk about has to be done in the sunshine, out in the public. And I must have missed that email, and that's because I think the reason I missed it was I had a lot going on. I think it was in July, and I was going through radiation at the time. Or I think I might have went up to New York or something. I don't know. There was a lot going on that month, and I think I just missed it. And so when it originally came up about it, I went through my emails, and I was like, oh my gosh, there it is. And so we end up doing it correctly eventually, but it's like another red flag going, why did we not follow the proper channels? Why did we not follow our own rules and policies? And I'm finding more of those things, and it worries me. And it makes me wonder, what things am I missing? You know? And if I ask a question, of course, the answer is going to be, oh, no, nothing else. And I'm like, how do we know that for sure?
Yeah.
So that's why I ask a lot of the questions that I do.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying anybody's being mischievous, but you either knew you were doing it wrong and you did it anyways, or you're oblivious to the fact and there's a problem. Either way, it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's one of the things that has just come up consistently as well. Like people have talked about the pay, and I think, the way a city, Jonathan Hayes gets paid a handsome amount of money. Our county manager gets paid a lot
bigger.
of money. Yeah. And then the city manager. Yeah, I don't understand where the salary. How do you guys base the salary? You guys base it on like an average?
It's there's so many factors because I tried comparing it to other cities, but there's so many things like Panama City Beach, for instance, right? They have less population than we do as far as residents. You know, they have a lot of tourists. Of course, their residents base is growing. Actually, it's getting close to ours. But look at how much goes on over there. Their police department's extremely busy over there. All the businesses they have over there. I imagine they got permits galore for all the stuff that goes on over there. There's just so much more that happens because of all the tourism. We don't have a lot of that, you know? So you can't base it on population size, you know? So it's objective.
So do you think, though, that it's too high, though? Do you think that you guys are currently paying a city manager?
It's based on their performance, in my opinion. You know, you when you first start them out, you try to figure out, okay, what's a good one to start out as, and then, you know, depending on, and I think that's why the reason why they do it that way is depending on their performance depends whether they get pay raises. Yeah. Of course, they get COLA allowance. They're always going to get that.
Yeah.
But
what is the car allowance? I'm curious. Do you know how much it is a month?
$750
a month.
And I think it was $350, something like that.
She drives her personal vehicle.
And you know, that's not unusual for a city manager to get a car allowance. It's just part of the pay and benefits because, you know, depending on the city, I'm sure they do a lot of different driving around, not just from home to work, but other things, you know. So that's not unusual. Yeah. And I'll say this, the city manager position, it's a very volatile position. Yeah. And that's why there's a really good pay and benefit package with it, because there's a lot of responsibility involved with it. Yeah. So. Yeah. And then I know the overtime thing, but that's kind of crazy that they. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly, because it's like. Sent in an email and it wasn't voted on and all that. Yeah. That's weird. I know. So did anybody?
Yeah, but the way that you're explaining it is not the way that other people explain it. The way that you are explaining it is, well, there's an email, and that's how they violated that. The way other people are, I mean, the way that they're saying it is she shouldn't get extra pay because she's on salary. And I'm like, well, that's not true, because I've had salary jobs and I got paid overtime whenever I had to go do something else. That's not always true. It depends on the job that you have. But what you're saying is the sunshine law situation is the
Right.
violation part.
Yeah.
So that
And I'll be
there-
I'll be straight up and honest with you. I've broken the sunshine law by accident. I mean, it wasn't intentional.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So what you're supposed to do when you violate the sunshine law is you're supposed to correct it by doing what you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right. So with me, it had to do with the speed bumps in Mowat Highlands, and the mayor decided to have a town hall on it. Right.
Yeah.
And I think I just come back from New York.
Yeah.
Because I had to go to a funeral, and I said, I'll just go in, sit in the back, and listen. And I did, but I got asked a question from the mayor, and I answered it. And so as soon as I did that, you break the sunshine, because it wasn't advertised that we're having this meeting together, and we're not supposed to be together talking about city business. So when we did vote on that, I brought that up. So that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to bring it up, explain what happened, and then vote on it. So that's what I did.
The sunshine law thing, just like anything, though, I just had a conversation with a guy the other night who had worked in law enforcement for quite a while, and he said the law is blind. Just because you made a mistake and you didn't know that it was wrong doesn't take accountability from the issue. So, I mean, even though that whole salary thing, overtime thing, it doesn't freaking matter if it was oops, my bad or not. It's
Right.
a freaking, it's like, well, and the reason why you have to, and this because we were just talking about being in the military. How many times do you have somebody come to you and just be like, oh, I get it. Never mind, dude. Don't worry about that. It's
Right.
fine. Like, no, it's like normally the way that it works in combat arms is whenever something like that is done, it doesn't matter. It could be the most minuscule thing, and you'll have a punishment that exceeds way over that, because again, you're making an example out of something that is this stupid, and then people are like, well, I'm not going to ever make that freaking mistake because I saw what happened to that dude. That dude was low crawling through a parade field in the sprinklers until 2 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm never going to do that. Like, I'm never going to do that
Yeah.
what he did again. And I think that's the same with that, especially with the salary or that. Like, so no repercussions really came of that either. It sounds like there's a lot of, and listen.
And I'm not, I know we're talking about a lot of negative things. And that,
Well, that's what I was about to say. Is I was going to say I've had on the city manager, and I've had on the mayor, and I've had on other commissioners, and the whole thing about it is like, no, I'm not trying to. The point is that it seems like there's a trend of a lot of negative issues that have happened that haven't had proper repercussions. They haven't had the proper accountability. So yeah, no, I understand why you are upset. I understand the situation. We don't necessarily agree on necessarily the punishments on what should happen,
Right.
but I understand that there have been things that have been kind of neglected.
Right.
But
and look, and I'm going to say this, and I know it's probably going to be unpopular for me to say this, but I know there's people probably on this end of the spectrum that no matter what the city manager or the mayor does, they can do no right. And then you got people on the other end of the spectrum that they can do no wrong. I'm neither of those. I'm just trying to do what's right, and I'm not perfect either. I've made mistakes. We all make mistakes. It's what you do afterwards that matters. And if I make a mistake, I'll apologize and say, "Oh, sorry, I made a mistake." And if it's bad enough, I should be held accountable for it.
absolutely,
And I'll give you another example for that. Is like, it's crazy how in public office it can be very fragile. All you could just do one wrong thing and it could turn things. So you take that one meeting that on the March 11th when things went south between me and the mayor. If I would have not handled that properly, that whole thing could have turned around and it made it look like I'm not fit for office.
Well, turning that whole situation into a fucking race issue, I think, is the issue there. When you bring up a post that you make.
Oh, that was a different one, but yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought that's the one you were talking.
No.
That was the one that freaking sent me overboard, where I was like, I was running for office at the time when all this went down. Actually, if you want to know something that pisses me the freak off, it was going and knocking on somebody's door trying to talk about county issues, and all they want to do is talk about freaking Lynn Haven.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. And so it's just like, it's like one of those things where I'm like, listen, I'm trying to talk to you about your freaking
County
property
issues.
taxes, and you're trying to talk to me about something that I have
No jurisdiction.
Like if I became county commissioner, I'm not gonna know. Like this has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
But you know what though? I'll tell you what. That's not true. Because I used to say that all the time. No, they're trying to figure out where your character is. They want to know where you stand on the local issue. Because it's a major thing that plays a role in our community. Just like national politics come into play whenever you're running for local office.
You know what the number one question I got the first time I ran?
Oh, are you a Republican or Democrat?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
I'm
It's
like
huge.
I'm running for municipal office, but
That's why I laugh at.
around here it's important.
That's why I laugh at local candidates that sit there and say, "Well, what does that have to do with me running for local office?" And it's like, dude, this is not just the South. This is the Deep South. And if you are against guns and you are for aborting children and you are for, women and men mutilating their children into a different sex, bro, I'm telling you right now, if you're for that stuff, you ain't got a shot.
Yeah.
You won't even have a chance. So, and a lot of people, that's just sad because I want to see. No, dude, we're not sick. We're not sick.
And
down
so,
here,
and this is how I would normally answer it. And I believe this is I'm like, I wouldn't want you to vote for me or not vote for me based on my political party affiliation. I want you to vote for me because I have the knowledge, skills, and leadership skills to be the best commissioner for you.
And then right after that, you say I'm a Republican.
Well, if they push the issue, I would answer it.
Yeah.
But I think I told you the story where I actually had someone rip up my flyer when they asked me that question. And I told them I was a Republican. They ripped my flyer up. She goes, yeah, that's what I thought. And I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, when I walked with Sam on his campaign, that was one of the funniest things. But people would ask that, but I ran into this guy on his doorstep, and it was like, and I still don't know anything about politics. I'm still learning. That's what I'm talking to people.
It's a lot to learn.
Yeah, well, I'm dumb as a box of rocks, and I'm probably never going to learn anything about this stuff. But my whole thing.
But you know what though? How much you get involved, right? Is probably a whole lot more than 99% of the people.
Well, there was a commissioner that I had on, and he told me, because obviously I'm going through a little. I got a kid that's pitching a temper tantrum right now about me because I never thought that a grown man texting another grown man would ever be anything that anybody would be interested in, but apparently it was. But I recently had a conversation with a city commissioner, and he said, what's really funny about this whole situation is he's like, because of your podcast, he's like, you've talked to like every single person that's ran so far. And he's just like, he says, candidates better than anyone in the community.
Yeah.
Because of how much time you've spent with them. And then, and by the way, after we have this conversation, however long it goes, I go and sit in front of a freaking computer screen, and I sit there and I have to listen to it a couple of times while I am trying to adjust things and when I try to put things together. And then maybe there's something that you want cut out. Now I got to go back and I got to figure out a way to do that. And, where it looks presentable and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it, but I get to know everybody. And that's why you could say, and I have defended every single candidate that every single commissioner and candidate that I have had on this show against somebody out in public. When actually Demetrius Reese is the perfect example. I had on Demetrius, a great guy. He's out there in the community every day, works, and somebody came up and they immediately started calling him a Democrat. They started talking about how he was for all of these different things, and they said, "Oh, he's never voted before. He just now registered, and like all this stuff, and everything was negative that came out of their mouth." And I stopped and I said, "Let me stop you right there." I spoke to that dude for a couple of hours, and I'll tell you, he is nothing that you are sitting there talking about right now. He's not the person that you're painting him to be.
I don't like it when you run for office and there's mudslinging going on, right? And I remember the first time I ran. Well, yeah. But because you really, and you got to get out of your comfort zone. Yeah. You really do.
Yeah, you do.
So the first time I ran for office, I went on to runoff, and me and George Hines ran against each other, and we didn't throw any mud at each other. I ran my campaign, he ran his campaign, and that's the way it should be, Yeah. And we were actually on WMBB when they did the debate between each other, and they always ask you at the end, is there a question you want to ask your opponent, And of course, they're wanting you to try to stir some stuff up or create a debate or whatever. And my answer was, actually, no. I said, I thank George Hines for allowing me to run my campaign without us throwing mud at each other or anything. And I hope I did the same for you. And that way the residents can hear our views on everything and they just pick who they think the best person for the job is. And I wish we could do that all the time, but. Well, and there are exceptions. Don't get me wrong. There are exceptions to that. If you get attacked, of course, you got to defend yourself. But overall, that normally doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, not really. But I think, and the key word there is mud. What is mud? What is the mud? Is the mud? So what I consider mud. And actually, this is a good conversation because mud to me is like you going 10 years back. Like 10 years ago, and like one of the things that came out during my campaign, and now it's coming out again because people think that people care, but so I got arrested for domestic violence like 10 years ago, prior marriage or whatever. Like the court system was like there's no evidence here of anything that's been done, so and then it was dropped, the case was dropped.
Right.
So, but then you have people that throw that up on social media and all these outlets, and they're like, and here's the thing, they think that it hurts me, and I'm like, I already know about it. I was there. Like, it's like, and then on top of that, it's like, all people find is that there are allegations that were never found proven. And then, so that's mudslinging. Now, if I take a video from what you say from the dais, and I say, this is what this guy thinks. Right. That's not mudslinging.
No, it's just facts.
That's straight up. I hit you with exactly, what he said.
I thought, not being from here, I would be totally safe from that. And I can't think of anything in my past that would come up that's like, oh my God, that could really hurt me. I really can't think of anything, and I hate to bring this up, but like when Ellen Fields ran, they went all the way from when she was in Washington State on some domestic dispute that happened, Now, I don't know the whole story. Could she have been guilty of what they accused her of? Maybe. I don't know. Does it really matter? It's not like...
Well, the whole thing is that people say, well, it shows their character. And it's like, no, people change.
Now, if you got a history of it, okay.
Yeah.
If you're going around robbing banks and doing crazy stuff like that, that's different, And so, I thought that was wrong,
My wife,
regardless of who you supported.
My wife, currently, that I've had children with, we've been married since 20.
Uh-oh. Better cut that out.
we got married. We got married when I was in jump school at Benning. That was in 2000. I think it was like 2018. We've been married for a little while, and so, but she, damn it. Anyway, listen, man, I have suffered 3 concussions now. And so, like,
So yeah, you got an excuse. I mean.
That's the reason why people are like, he's so stupid. I'm like, dude, I know it. It sucks because I can't think of things. But she was asked out in public how she is able to still be married to me after I beat her and my kids.
Yeah.
So check this out. My wife,
And that goes back to what we talked about before. It's like,
well, what's funny about it is my wife knew that I had like a rough past with my ex-wife, and it was a very, very. And by the way, it was a very horrible situation for both of us. Like we were, it was a different time of my life, and it was a different time of her life. I'm not going to justify anything because there was nothing that really happened. But the thing about it is that my wife. No, I did not go out and just start volunteering information to my wife and saying, I was arrested for domestic violence. No, I just really. So, how my wife found out was through somebody else like that. And I was like, yeah, he was. And then it was like, but they were thinking that she was the one that was in the police report. And,
it was your ex.
and my wife was just like, what are you talking about? Like, what? And my wife's like, what's kind of like, oh, yeah. Well, the reason why this never came up is because it wasn't anything. It literally wasn't. It was just something stupid. And she's like, oh, okay. My wife blew it off. The thing about it is like, when you get that far into something where you're using something against somebody, like people might think that, well, it's showing his character. So since then, after I was arrested, I've held clearances with the with the DOD and multiple agencies.
Yeah.
I have I served in the United States military. I have also traveled the world in other capacities with agencies, with companies to protect this nation. And you're going to paint me as this person? Fuck you.
Yeah.
I'll take that out.
Quack,
Sorry.
quack.
Yeah, quack, quack. But it's just like, I laugh my ass off at this stuff.
So there are people who get a secret clearance all the time that have some type of record,
Yeah.
right? And you know what normally prevents someone from getting a secret clearance? When they lie about it.
Yep.
When they don't put it down and they lie about it or they try to hide it, that's when they don't get it.
I had to do a polygraph.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've had to do a polygraph for a clearance before.
Is that pretty nerve-wracking? No?
Well, you have different types. I've done a lifestyle polygraph, which is like one of those ones that takes like 3 hours to do.
Oh, my gosh.
That's the reason why I'm like, listen. Oh,
Well, they
they're
must
like,
be diving deep.
if you think that you are grilling me based on the information you have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, when you start having somebody ask you questions about what a teacher said about you in high school or something like that, I mean, they dig deep into some of these investigations. That's not a joke either. That's
No,
for
it's
real.
not.
Like,
I've talked to other people who've been through it, and I've heard it can be pretty nerve-wracking.
yeah. Well, I mean, it is if you're planning on lying.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, my whole thing
You
is
just don't know what they're going to ask you, you know?
Dude. I'll tell you, dude. When this is over, I'll tell you some questions because there's some weird ones. You're just
Yeah.
like, what did you just ask me? No, I've never thought. What?
Get out of here.
With a goat? Like,
But yeah, I mean, when you're in public office or even when you're running for office, you really end up seeing people's true colors,
yeah.
you know? And that includes yourself. I mean, I've seen some things in myself where I'm like, I shouldn't be going down that road.
I'm guilty, man, because man, when I ran against Daniel, I was coming out with those videos left and right.
But you know
that
what?
wasn't much. I was having fun. Some of them were a little Kendall. Some of those were a little over the top, Kendall.
Yeah.
Some of those were a little over the top. But
But I'll be honest with you. I mean, anybody run for office, of course, I give them credit because it's not easy because you really got to stick your neck out there and people are going to dig into stuff. And like you're saying, they're going to try to show finds things to throw mud at you that really unnecessary. That's not fun, and especially when it involves your family.
So what's the worst lie that somebody has said about you while you've been in office? Do you know?
Gosh,
You got to have at least one good one.
I'm sure there's something out there.
I don't know.
Probably. Well, I don't.
Oh God, that one was a good one. Josh Street.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
He's like, my son doesn't even have a license, brother. Like, I'm like, dang, man.
I think there was one when I was supporting Brian Cloudis, and I think there was something about I had an alternate lifestyle or something like that.
Alternate lifestyle?
Yeah. And so.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you?
Well, I mean, trying to dress up as, opposite gender.
Oh
or
my
something
God!
Like that.
What?
Yeah. It didn't last very long. In fact, I thought it was humorous because I'm like, hope my wife doesn't find out about that,
Yeah.
But I mean, that was at
That's
the very
funny.
beginning, and it died. And it wasn't like a whole lot of people said it. I think it was only like a couple people, but I mean, there's.
I'm happy that a lot of these die.
It wasn't really so much lies, just people, I think, make accusations because of a certain decision they made or a certain decision didn't make, and they automatically assume certain things. I think that's probably a bigger thing.
I was down at we were down in St. Andrews, and I was coming out of Bergen Barrel. Phil Mercer, we just had him on a couple of days ago. But I had this guy, he came up to me, and I was getting ready to get in my car, and he came up and he's like, hey, you're Ron Keel. And I was like, I just looked down, I was like, yeah. By the way, I don't say yes anymore. I just said, who? I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's like, yeah, you're Ron Keel, right? And I was like, yeah. He goes, yeah, that car, I know all about it. I was like, what? And he comes up to me and he goes, I know Alan Branch bought you that car to throw all the mud out there on Dock Rowan.
What?
And I was like, you know about that? And he goes,
it's funny.
Yeah, dude. I was like, I'm pretty sure Alan Branch has enough money to buy me a brand new one.
Yeah.
It's just like,
That's funny.
You wouldn't be buying me one that's 10 years old, brother. But yeah, there are crazy stuff out there about all that stuff, man. And I feel for you. I feel for a lot of these guys out there, and having a podcast probably hasn't helped much for some of these people.
Yeah.
But it's part of the game. But
I don't think I could have ran for county commissioner. I don't know how you did it, man, because that's tough. That's a totally different ball game.
no, that was
You got to raise
definitely-
money.
I was
you
definitely
know?
out of my league. And I'll say it, like people have been bringing up as these elections have been going on. We've been watching this, dude. Like I watched this guy lose what last week, and it's been like they started bringing up my election results. And he lost by a landslide. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm not gonna do that. Hey, I know. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's one of those Alex Jones moments. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded,
So-
but I can read. I know I lost by a landslide.
So if you don't mind me asking, because I'm a very competitive by nature. That's
so
just the
am
way
I.
I am.
Yeah,
And
very competitive.
and it's one of the things that's always in the back of my mind. I have to continue to remind myself, just be honest with who you are when you run for office and that. But I always in the back of my mind of, what if I lose? How am I going to react? And because I'll be honest with you, when I lose, I'm a horrible loser. I'm a sore loser. Well, I wouldn't say sore loser, but I'm normally not a very good loser, Like playing games, I'm very competitive, like even if it's just a board game. My family, we played Monopoly just one time.
Yeah.
and we'll never play again because I'm that competitive. And of course, I won. You know, and of course, if I lose a board game, it's not the end of the world, but it shows you how competitive I am.
Yeah.
So, what was that like, if you don't mind me asking? Because I imagine you had to swallow your pride and stuff, and it had to have been tough.
Well, the so I'm gonna be. This is gonna sound bad, but I'm gonna be honest. I knew I lost that race when one of the candidates showed up in my driveway, and he told me how much money he raised in a campaign event in one night.
Yeah.
And that I still have to look at that that day, because every single time I walk to my refrigerator, I remember that day, because there's I don't know if I should say this on.
Oh, you can edit it out. But,
Well, I punched my refrigerator,
mhm.
and there's a
Yeah, you got to think about that every
there's an
time.
imprint in it, and like my wife keeps saying, we need to buy a new refrigerator, and I'm like, no, I like to look at it every day to know that I lost, because that's what keeps this going.
Yeah.
Like, the mouths out there that talk about me and talk about how I'm like dirty politics and I'm a Judas and all that bull crap, like that stuff, you keep talking, because all that's doing is just giving me more motivation. But the thing that really keeps me going is every morning I got to look at a loss.
Yeah.
But you know what I think is interesting about that whole thing? When you say competitive nature, it was like I mean, I never gave up. I mean,
Mhm.
I still because I'm a big believer in when you start something, you finish it out, even if
Right.
you know you're going to lose.
You know, that's
Um,
where I have to give Jeff Snyder a lot of credit. He ran the runoff. He could have just dropped out, and he didn't.
and then it was close.
I know it. I know
It was freaking
He
close.
came back from a long ways. He did.
I don't think he realized it was going to be that.
I didn't think it was going to be that close. But I think it was, even if it wasn't, I think it was good of him to run again or go in the runoff, because
Mhm.
it shows that, one, he's competitive, he doesn't give up, and he's a resilient person, and he will keep fighting. And I'm glad he did that. I think it was good. So, but eventually, he's going to be on the commission someday. I know he will.
Jeff?
Yeah, and if any, one of the things I told people when I went door to door and talking with people is, he is an honest person. And if anybody ever tells me he told a lie, I'd be like, no, you're a liar.
When you were talking a second ago, that's what I wanted to say. And I was waiting when you asked that question. You talked about like changing who you are when you run. And I changed myself a lot. And you know
Yeah.
what? People saw it.
That's good.
But here's the thing. People can't handle my personality. Like, this is my personality. I'm talking to you like a normal person.
Right.
Sorry, and that's the reason I'll never run for. I keep saying that, and I believe it 100. I'll never run for politics or never run for any type of position ever again. And the reason why, is because I can't look at you when you ask me when I'm sitting there. Take the doorstep for an example, where I was talking to you about that a second ago. I'm there to talk about county issues, and there's a person that's sitting there wanting to talk about the police chief, the city manager, the mayor of Lynn Haven, the whatever. And my personality is, did you not hear me when I walked up here, dude? I'm running for county commission.
Right.
That is my personality, saying that. And then some people say, well, that's wrong. And it's not wrong. Everybody's got a different personality and how they handle stuff. That doesn't make them wrong. That just makes them different than you.
Right.
And in politics, you can't be different. You can't. You got to be the picture perfect candidate.
Effective. You got to be effective.
That picture perfect candidate, you can actually find that though in people. You can. It's they're very far and few between. You do have genuine people out there that are in the community. You know, if there's one thing I can say about Daniel, well, actually, I can say a lot of good things about Daniel. I can now. I talk to him pretty regularly.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, he called me after this dumb shit going on, and he was wanting to know how I was doing. Now he didn't call me and he didn't say, "Hey man, I stand behind you." He didn't do that shit. He called me up and was like, "Hey man, how are you doing?" You know, does he care? And I feel like he does. He might not. I don't know. But this is what I do know. That dude was already working in the community pretty hard, but before he started running. I mean, he helps out with
He
football
already made a name
programs.
for himself.
He had made a name for himself when he was doing all that stuff. So, like, you know, like I said, when, you know, and I still criticize him about it to this day because I just don't think that there's anybody out there that is just that nice. That's just how I am. That's how my personality is. But you know what? I don't have any evidence that says anything different.
Right.
But I'm the type of person also where, you know, I've always said, you know, you see a guy with a smile on his face and he's got a little bit of money in his pocket and life's just good. That's not who that person is anyway.
Right.
You want to know what a person really looks like? Put him in a trench and make him crawl for hours on end, you know, and make him soaking wet, and then have somebody start screaming in your face, and you're going to see exactly who that person is.
Yeah.
And so, you know, but we don't have that ability to do that to candidates.
No.
That would be called hazing.
They're called forums.
But I guess what I was trying to say is like when you I didn't have the ability to be myself. That was the thing about it.
It's hard. It is.
And then when I was myself, people would get mad.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
It's hard. You gotta know how to read people, you know, and sometimes it's hard because not enough people vote. We know that, and so you're really trying to pick at it and try to figure it out, you know. But that is one of the things that's nice about municipal elections is you don't have to necessarily raise a lot of money. You don't.
Yeah.
First time I ran, I think I raised, I don't know, maybe $2,400, if that. And some of it was my own money. And nobody knew me, you know. Where at county level, that's almost impossible.
Well, dude,
to do.
I'll still say this, and I will rub this in freaking Daniel's face and Tommy's. Oh, hold on. I'll rub this in their face all day long. I came out with a video. I can't remember how many views it got. I think it was close to, I don't remember. But I called him out on the fact that he was just racking up all this money, and it stopped. On his next reports, like those funds stopped, where it was like, oh shit, he's going to start hitting me on how much money I'm raising now. And then it stopped. Because I got news for you. Daniel and Tommy had high plans to get even more money. I think it was the fact that they were scared they were going to lose votes. Neither one of them were scared I was going to win. They were just scared that I was going to take their votes.
Right.
And so, but what I think did them in was the fact of like, oh shit, we're going to go to something like WMBB where it was brought up, where it's like, oh, look, you've got $135,000 that you raised, and you've got $126,000 you raised, and this guy's got $7,000. Like, and that looks bad, man, because then it does make you look like you're up against like this whole thing. And
it's like the David and Goliath thing. You know?
And I'll tell you what, Daniel was 100% correct in that debate that night when he said, listen, campaigns are expensive.
County, yes.
Yeah, I didn't understand what he was talking about at the time.
Because in municipal level, you
Yeah.
can go do the door-to-door thing.
Mhm.
Now, you can do the door-to-door thing at county also, but you're
It'd take
talking
you- it's
the
gonna take you
entire
all-
county.
it's gonna
You'd
take
have
you
to
too
have a
long.
big team of people.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot more difficult to do that, almost impossible. And so that's why, what him saying that you need funding, you do. You have to have funding.
When I found out that I was kind of, when I was running, also, man, dude, we're not here to talk about me. We're supposed to be talking about you.
No,
But
it's all good.
um,
See how I turn that around?
man, you're part of that deep state. But no, I found out that I didn't necessarily. The supporters that supported me were great.
Yeah.
And there were I can uh, Dolores Mace, freaking Carol Crisp. You got freaking.
Oh yeah, Carol, she's great.
Like shoot, I mean, hey, Jody Moore. I mean, Jody really did fight in my corner. Mainly because I was a veteran and I was coming back home and I wanted to serve. But like these people, they did really fight. But then towards like now where I'm at, now that I've kind of got a little bit of a better handle on things and I'm looking at things for what they really are, like sometimes you have to really take a look at what your position was when you ran, and you have to say, is this what I really believe, or is this something that I was saying in the moment because I was getting support because I didn't have support.
Right.
I don't believe that there was anything that I spout off of the mouth that I didn't believe, but I agreed with a lot of things that I didn't agree with, that I actually didn't agree with. And a lot of those things had to do with like whatever was being spat out on, a specific show, or what was being put in articles. And there were things that I was sitting there and I'm like, I actually don't agree with this. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been in a position when you've been running for office where you look at things and you're like, I understand it's important to you, but like I could care less about that. Like, or I don't agree with you. And then you can't be yourself to look at somebody and say, I don't agree with what you're saying.
Right.
What's cool about, and I don't want to sound like a jerk when I say this, but what's cool about the position that you're in now is you only got 4 more years, baby. So now, that's why Jenna came. I think the reason why Jenna got emotional and told her story on this podcast was because she was done.
Right.
And when people know that they're done, they're like, okay, now I can say what I want to say.
Yeah.
And,
it's kind of like we have a thing called the Air Force Sergeant Association International Conference. And on there, they have the highlight of the whole week is they have a panel of all the retired Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, which, as you know, is the highest enlisted position you can hold. And so they have that panel, and you can ask them whatever you want. And, of course, they're done with that position. They're retired. And so they're very honest about what they talk about. So, yeah, it's nice after you're done. Like just sitting here, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I should say that, So you're careful on your words and what you say. But, yeah, when you're done, yeah, it's free game after that.
yeah.
So, and you're right after this one, I don't think I can run again, even if even if I could, I don't know if I really want to. I debated on this one, whether to run again. And luckily I had enough people that pushed me and said, no, you need to stay in there. So that's why I ran again.
Yeah, man, the amount of stress that comes along with it. I look at Sam, I see Sam pretty much every day. And I've watched that dude age.
Yeah.
It's
not easy.
Just in 2 years, I've watched him. And I meant what I said. I said it in I can't remember who I had on it. I think it might have been Jeff. It might have been somebody that I had on, but I meant what I said. I've watched that dude in tears before because of the way that things are brought across, what's being said about him. And now you got these pages. You know what page I'm talking about. They'll come after your family now. They'll talk about what's going on with your kids at school, stuff like that. Like, dude, you don't do that.
Right.
And when you got that, first of all, you're already donating time and energy into a position that you don't really get paid for. I mean, what, 15 grand, right?
Yeah.
$15,000 a year. And you're taxed on it.
Yeah. So after taxes, it's like $5.
Yeah. yeah. Because they keep paying all these high salaries to city managers. But anyway, I could make jokes all day. But anyway, but I mean what I say. Like it has, your spouse has to deal with it.
When
Kids
you're
have to watch you go through it.
I think this is probably one of the things that I stress about is when I'm done with this and I hang up the shirt and look in the mirror and say, I did everything I should have done. You know, I'm always going to have regrets on things, but, you know, did I make a difference? And that's what I'm worried about, is looking back and saying whether I made a difference or not.
Well, I can
So-
tell you that you're making more of a difference than the people that just sit on a freaking keyboard all day long.
Yeah.
Or you're making more of a difference than a guy that sits behind a microphone and talks shit about politicians.
Well, yeah.
So, but the thing about it, because you're actually doing the job. That's the reason why, like, people are like, "I can't believe you said this about that person, that person, that person." I'm like, bro, they're still making a bigger difference than me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, I just, and I want you to know that, like, and I like, again, I'm not going to agree with everything that you do or say
No,
or,
we
or
won't.
anything
We
like.
shouldn't.
Yeah, we should. Well,
We
because
shouldn't.
we're freaking humans, and to think that you're going to be a robot and you're just going to go along with everything that's ever said is
Right.
completely ridiculous. And to judge somebody because of the way that they look at something is completely stupid.
Listen to all that rain, and
I
wondering
know.
all those people at Gulf Coast Jam must be having a hard
Oh
fun
my
time
God.
right now.
Somebody said that today. They said that they were out there yesterday or something like that, and so
Yeah,
they
my
used to-
daughter and wife is out there right now.
the Frank Brown used to be used for show horses in the area that they do.
Oh, no kidding.
So all of that manure
Oh, yeah.
that has seeped into the soil, like every time it rains and saturates it,
That
you
stinks.
still get the smell.
No
And
kidding.
people are out there walking around in flip flops and stuff like that. And somebody was just talking about that today. I thought it was hilarious. I was like, dang, I didn't think about it like that. But yeah, dude. And the thing is, man, it sucks because like it's not like they have a place they can do indoors, but the stage that they use is probably covered. The bands are probably okay.
I think that's covered. If I remember right. But yeah, you're out in the open, the audience. There's nothing covering you.
I mean, they don't rain it out. It doesn't get rained out.
Well, I remember the one year I went. I think if it's rain, I think they'll keep going. But we started having thunder and lightning. It was getting ready to come in. They're like, "All right, y'all need to leave. You can leave your stuff here. It'll be here when you get back, but you gotta leave. Go." And it was pretty orderly, and everybody was professional. And so yeah, we all got soaked, and we ended up leaving. But we were all volunteering. Like I was doing the driving, so there was like multiple drivers, and they pick up like people from the band and that, and then you get a free pass to go to the concert. That's like your incentive to do it. And not only that, I think they pay so much money, but it goes to whatever organization's doing it. So usually it's like a nonprofit or something that does it, and they get so much money from it.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win.
So I got a question for you. The past 4 years, what's the greatest accomplishment that you are proud of?
Oh boy.
That you have done for Lynn Haven?
I don't know if it's me, but
Well, something that you pushed for, and
there's a couple things I pushed for, like, and I pushed for this when I was a resident, and I don't know if that's why it came up or not, but the charter review, that was in desperate need of being done. There's a lot of changes, and I still believe there's more changes that need to happen, but the charter review committee, I felt, did a great job. It's not an easy task. When something hasn't been updated for quite a few years, and then you go in there and you dive deep and you're trying to make these changes, it's very difficult. And originally, I think we had like 8 questions, and we got them down to 4 questions because you didn't want too many of them. And all 4 of them passed with flying colors. So that told me that they did a really good job. But I wasn't the one that I brought it up as a resident, but it was the mayor that actually, I think, started that and said, "Hey, we need the charter review board." I don't know. There's a lot of little things like I didn't get fully successful, but I'm a big proponent in all the meetings being in the evening. I think the residents, that's what they want, you know. But it's hard for me to fight for that when not enough people come out to the meetings, you know. But I think originally it was 9 a.m. and I think the other one was at 4 p.m. And I was able to get one of them changed to 5:30. So you got one in the morning and one in the evening. But I still think they should both be in the evening. But yeah, that's probably one thing that I'm kind of thankful for. Some people might disagree with me on this, but I know Judy Tinder does not agree with me on this, but the pre-commission meetings, I think they're important. And the reason I originally brought up the pre-commission meeting was you have the sunshine law, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan of the sunshine law. I think it hinders what we're trying to do, and I understand the purpose behind it.
I agree with you.
The purpose is to try to prevent not literally drug deals, but things being done in the back without, the public knowing about it. But it's hard because there were some things I brought up that, like the commission meeting times was one of them where I kind of took the gloves off a little bit and I don't want to say I attacked, but, I brought up some things and brought up these points. And I didn't want to do it in that approach. And I even started out that way. I said, this is not the way I really want to do this. But by having a pre-commission meeting, we can have a conversation about it. Where once you're on that dais, it's a different thing. It's a totally different venue. And where in the pre-commission meeting, you could have those discussions that you wanted to have that you can't have one-on-one. You know what I mean? You can still have those in the commission meeting, but by the time you're done, you're going to have like Panama City is having 6, 7, 8 hour meetings, and you really don't want to have
Not
those.
anymore.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I think those are gone.
That's done.
But by doing it, that conversation changes when you're not on the actual dais and in a meeting like that. Now, the pre-commission meetings are open to the public. Everyone can come and watch them. There's no public commentary. And but you can listen to it on YouTube, the audio. But because that was one of the reasons. The other reason was because we were tabling a lot of things, and we still table things from time to time. But I think the record, as far as how much we table, is a lot less than what we used to. So I think it helps with those things flowing better. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, yeah, no positive impacts that you've had on the city since you sat on the seat. There's a lot of people that'll sit there, on a seat. We've watched it for a little while, and it's like, what do you have to show for everything that you've done?
Right.
And I think right now,
that kind of goes back to where I put the shirt up. I want to be able to know that I did some positive things.
I think that's
positive changes.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that do leave office and they didn't do anything. And they might have been part of a vote. They might have, but like, what did you push for? What did you stand up for?
Right.
What did you, and I know that some people are going to know who I'm talking about when I say this, but even at Lynn Haven, one of the things I really liked watching it's actually happened a couple of times now where I see you guys talk things out up there. When you guys don't talk things, and yes, I've had people say, well, in their pre-commission meeting, they already talked about that and they talked it out. And it's like, yeah, but it looks really bad when you go to a meeting and you see you guys just sit up there like the Manchurian Candidate and just be like, yep,
And then,
yep,
yeah.
yes, no, and it's like, no, man, like I want to see that, there's something that's being said. And it's like, well, you got to go to the pre-commission meetings. So I get the pre-commission meeting aspect of it.
And you don't necessarily have to come to
Well,
pre-commission
but
meeting,
listen to them.
But you could do that. But the other thing I thought would be a good thing is if you do listen to them and there's something you disagree with or you want to give feedback, it gives you time to give feedback to the commissioner before the next commission meeting. And then you might change my perspective on something,
Yeah.
And there are times that has happened where I was looking at it one way and I got feedback from the residents and totally changed my mind. So
I had an idea, and I've said this to every candidate that I've had on from Lynn Haven. So do you know what I'm about to ask?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about it?
So about public commentary on a different night. Is that what it was?
So the way that I look at now, I understand you have to have public commentary when you vote.
Yes.
So that doesn't
Correct.
change. But the beginning portion of that public commentary where folks are bringing new business, I feel like that should be done on the reason why, it's not to silence anybody. I think everybody should have the right to go up there and be able to say whatever you want, even if it's unpopular, to the commission. But it's the reason why that public commentary is, in my opinion, useless is because it has nothing to do with that meeting that's going on. So if you took public, and I know, trust me, I'm about to be done.
No, it's all good.
If you took
I'm just
public
thinking.
commentary to a night before or a night after, and people were able to talk about it, you can make it part of your, what do they call it? Your report.
Right.
Because that will have given you some time to research whatever was brought up, but also the part that just pisses me off, just being a resident of Lynn Haven, is actively, what's the word I'm looking for? Actively encouraging people to just set out stuff that's just not. And that's the other part of that, right? When you have that public commentary on that separate night, you don't televise it. It doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
Because it's just like.
So I personally would still keep public commentary at the commission meeting, but I think you bring up a good point. It's like, why can't we just have, doesn't even have to be a meeting. It could be, I don't know what you call it, a town hall or something like that, where just come in and talk to us about whatever. You want to complain about something, or if you just want to give us feedback on something, maybe something you saw the city do that you really liked, something you'd like to see changed, or you just got questions on some things. I think that would be very beneficial. And we could do that once every, I don't know, once a quarter, once every couple months, whatever, and people could just come in and have that interaction, because like before, I know it's going to sound like I'm talking on both sides of my mouth, but during a formal meeting, when you have public commentary, you don't want that back and forth, because if you do, things can go south really quick. But if it's just an informal meeting where we're just talking, maybe we could have those conversations.
Yeah, I understand that point of view. And again, it's coming from more of it is a selfish way of looking at it, because it's like, that's the reason why I stopped going to meetings. I don't want to see a Karen go up there and freaking browbeat you or the mayor and sit there.
But
and
you
just,
know what? That happens in probably every single city
it
in
does.
America.
It does, but guess what? What they don't.
And it's just like on social media.
Yeah.
It happens all over the place. It's nothing new for Lynn Haven. It's just comes with the territory, unfortunately. And yeah, it can be exasperating, it's how you react to it, I think, is what makes a difference.
And I guess another thing is, and the people are in control of their own actions, and I'm not. Again, I'm getting back on the topic of Jesse just for a minute, but that whole interaction would have never happened if you didn't have multiple people over and over and over and over again just get up there and browbeat somebody when you're already browbeating them on media and social media about their family.
So I actually talked to Mayor Kelly, used to be Mayor Kelly.
Yeah.
I asked him about that. And you know what he told me? He goes, I would just let them go, let them have their 3 minutes. And when they're done, next. And that was it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. I think that's the key, because once we react, it's like you're putting fuel on the fire.
Yeah.
And that's what needs. And I take partial blame in that too, because as a commissioner, I should speak up and say, look, you need to stop that. And I haven't done that, and I failed in that part. So
you're not the only one. Someone else said that. I don't know who said that here recently. They told me, they said, one of the commissioners should have put their hand up and be like, okay, we're going to a recess because this is like,
yeah.
Or I think it's funny, like the other, it was the same person. They sat there and they were like, I just got up and walked off the dais and be like, let me know when you need me to come in and vote on something and when we're actually going to get down to city business. I mean, refuse to be a part of that type of behavior, refuse to be a part of it. But I will say, people are human, and people, I mean, here's the thing. Everybody always tries to make this black and white. And we said this earlier because you were saying, you're like, well, I'm a very black and white person. That dude is extremely black and white person. And well, I started doing the gray area stuff, and now I'm slowly. It's taken some time, but I'm slowly going over to black and white, and only black and white only.
Right.
But man, if I go black and white, oh, it's only this or it's only that. Oh, bro.
I think people just want to be heard. And if they feel like they're being heard, then they feel like they might have accomplished something.
So you're saying that they don't feel like they're heard because nothing is being done about it in the moment.
It's the way you interact with them. If you interact and kind of talk to them a certain way, then they're like, why did I get up there and say anything? Most people probably be that way, you know. If I was mayor, I would want them to feel like they're comfortable to come up and say something to me or anybody on the commission, you know, or the commission as a whole, because you're supposed to direct all your comments to the chair.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want them to fear coming up to talk to me, you know.
Oh.
Not necessarily fair, but
You're making me look at stuff from a different perspective.
I try.
I'm
That's what politicians are supposed to do, right?
Well, again, like people can, I've been wrong about some stuff here recently where I've said certain things and I've been like, this is the way that I look at it. And then I've looked at it and I've been like, But I do believe that that's a particular portion of like the Lynn Haven meeting that has just become.
Yeah, that culture needs to change. And I think it is changing, actually.
Well, and that's the other thing, right? Like you don't have a lot of, I think it's hilarious. Like the whole aspect of like, well, we want more young people to get it. You know why you don't see guys my age showing up to commission meetings unless they have personal interest? Why would I be part of it? Because every single time I show up, you talk about how young I am, you talk about how ignorant I am, you talk about like people that are in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Lynn Haven is an older community.
It is.
It's not. I'm sure you probably have the analytics on that. What?
I don't, but I know I think the huge percentage of the population is older people.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it was put out as far as the stats on the people that voted. You know, vast majority were older people. You know, like my kids voting. That's like. They're probably one of the younger ones.
Yeah. It's well, that's a thing in itself, man. Because you look at the voting, like the registered.
That's why you got to start them young.
The registered voters, and then you look at how many people vote.
I know,
and you're like, how does this work? It's almost kind of like, I know that this says, I don't know if you could do this, and there's probably some statute or some law or something it's probably against the Constitution, but if you're like, you lose your voter status if you don't use it a certain amount of times, you have to go back and re-register.
Yeah, that would be illegal. Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah, you can't do that. I mean,
it would be funny if you.
It would be.
Yeah, if you could lose your voter status based on how many times you voted.
Yeah. You know, yeah, it's.
So what's the highest out of that? Wow. But they're not those. Those
But
people
those are
aren't
the
going
vast
to vote.
majority that vote.
Yeah,
though.
exactly. Yeah, my age bracket's not getting out and voting.
Nah.
They're only voting in the.
But you know, I think when you have an issue that directly impacts them, that you support or don't support, then it drives people to come out and vote. You know. Yeah,
because what do we?
So sometimes it makes me wonder if we should just put something on there that's real controversial just to get people out there.
If you don't show up, we're gonna start dumping battery acid into the bay. or not. It'd be like, yeah. Vote if you want to see this happen or not.
Yeah. But I've thought of different things, that might bring in people to vote. But I know one of the things that's been brought up. Actually, it's probably a good thing to talk about is Panama City Beach has changed it. I think Panama City is. They talked about it at one time, and I think Callaway is talking about this is changing their election in November to line up with the presidential election and the state and federal elections.
Yeah.
I probably have a little bit different opinion than most people because I'll be honest with you, the first time I ran, I used to have that thought of why do we have a separate voting time for municipal elections? And the more I thought about it, and actually, if you listen to Panama City's meeting when they had that discussion, that was when Mark Anderson was Bay County Supervisor of Elections. He brought up some good points. I think when you go out, especially when you go out door to door or you go out and talk with people, the federal issues or the state issues will foreshadow all the other local stuff, And I'm not a proponent of it, even though I think there's a good chance you'll probably get more people to vote, but how many of them
Are voting for the right thing?
now
Well, voting for the local thing versus the national thing?
are they informed voters? Are they just voting because they're voting for the other election? I don't know.
Somebody.
And you could make an argument on both sides of that. Absolutely. I could see an argument on the other side. So I'm more of a proponent of being separate from the presidential election.
Yes.
And I got no game in it because I'm not. Wow, there's a really high chance I'm not going to run again. And just so everyone knows, no, I'm not going to run for mayor. I've had people ask me that. It's like, nope, I'm not going to run for mayor. It wouldn't be fair to the residents. It wouldn't be fair for the city. It wouldn't be fair to me. It wouldn't be fair to my family. Because to me, if you're going to be an efficient, successful mayor, you have to put the time in. And I won't be able to put the time in that you would need to be a successful mayor, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, plus you have already given 8 years to the city. This whole thing about staying in politics for forever is beyond me. I don't understand what that's about. Because
and I'm glad we changed it where you have to have a break in between because it makes you think about things differently. Some people need to be forced to take that break.
Yeah.
Originally, when we talked about it, we were like, well, when we got it from the Charter Review Committee is you do 2 terms and you can't run again unless you run for mayor. But the more we discussed it, we were like, well, but your pool of people is going to be really small of who's going to run because, normally not that many people run for office. So that's when we decided, okay, you have to take a 2-year break and then you can run again if you decide to run again. And I think that's going to be a good balance. I don't know if any other cities do that. So it's going to be interesting how this is going to work out. I think it's going to work out for the better for Lynn Haven. Because you're right, after you've done 8 years, are you part of the problem? Have you become, accustomed to how things go? And, as you get older, typically you're not as open to change. And I don't want to be that person.
Yeah, I understand. There's a couple of things about local government and how it runs here that's kind of like weird. One of those things is, you're talking about that issue, but one of the issues that I always thought was interesting was the at-large.
Not having wards or districts?
Yeah, so especially for the county, that was one of the biggest things for my argument about the county because you're never gonna get the genuine candidate for the area that for the people that they're supposed to be representing. Like we say district, so mine was District 1, right? If it would have been District 1, I could have hit all of District 1 with my feet.
Oh, yeah, for the county.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I agree with that for the county, since you are our districts that only the people in that district should be able to vote for you. I agree with that.
But both Tommy and Daniel's arguments on that is stupid. Like, because they'll sit there. I mean, it is.
Can you tell me how you really feel?
It's fucking dumb. And the reason why is because you asked how I really felt, and then I really told you. But it's stupid. So both of them say, well, as an at-large commissioner, you can, you're able to affect the whole county. Well, I talked to Panama City commissioners, and they have their own, and it's like, no. We still work for the city, but we have the interest of our ward at the best interest. So, but here's the other thing about it. You are turning it whenever you do these at-large things like the county, right? You are turning it into a money game. That is when you turn it into a money game, because until then, it's not based on money. It's based on how many people can
So, you bring up a good point. How much do you think you could have been more effective in trying to get people to vote for you if the only people that voted for you were in that district?
Yes.
Yeah. I think, actually, here's another point.
It becomes an unfair advantage when you say I'm going to hit the entire county. Now, I'm not saying, well, life isn't fair. Yeah, you're right. It isn't. But right now, and here's the other thing. When you do at large, you might be picking up somebody else's slack that isn't doing their job in their ward or district, because now you're having to handle all of that, and I get it. You want to be of service,
right.
But
I think part of it is a number thing where the less people you represent, I think the more effective you can be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here's a good example. So I was at the Bay County Republican Roundtable, and they had these two speakers there, and they both worked at state and federal level.
Yeah.
One gentleman, he actually was, I think he was like part of the staff or an aide of Massey. And so they talked about state and federal politics and how things work in Washington, D.C., and it was a lot of great information. And so I got a chance to talk to him afterwards, and I brought up a couple things with them. One, I said, I don't want to downplay what you guys do. I know it was probably a lot of work, and a lot went into it, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and you guys had some big impacts and things like that. But I feel like at the local level, it can be more difficult because any decision that you make, you have to live amongst those residents.
Yep.
So if you make a mistake and misread what the residents want or don't want, you can get a lot of flack for that.
Well, there's a
right?
particular district that is falling into what you're saying.
Right. So
Yeah.
my point is that we talked about that,
Mhm.
and I didn't know this, but not the federal level, but the state level. It's either New Hampshire or Vermont. I can't remember which one because I always get those two states mixed up. But one of them actually has more state reps, not the federal level, just state reps than California. Now think about that for a second. So you know that California is it the most dense state? I think it's the most dense state if I'm not, it's the biggest population size if I'm not mistaken. So think about if they have less state reps, how many people are they representing? A lot more. Where if that New Hampshire, Vermont one is representing a lot less people. So is this being more effective or is that being more effective? And I think that kind of goes in line with what you're talking about, where you got the districts and the only people that vote for you are those people in that district. If you break it out like that, I think you're more effective. And I would even make this argument. Now, hold on before you react to it, but I would actually be a proponent to have more county commissioners, but less pay, right? So
I'm not against that.
So, well, usually when people hear more county commissioners, they think, oh, what the heck? That's going to be a lot more money. But you could do it for
more
less pay.
effective for your district that you would be
Right.
representing.
So what they do in New York, or my county in New York, Cuba County, I think they have 13, and they call them county legislators is what they call them. And I can't remember how much they get paid, but I think what they determine to get paid is like how many committees you're on and that. I think they might get paid maybe $20,000, $30,000 to start off with.
These guys get paid.
Right. So what if you broke that out more? You know?
I don't think that the pay for a elected position should ever exceed the average pay of the population of wherever you're running. For the elected position. Now, that's not saying that the managers and like the actual employees can, but the elected official, I don't think you should ever make. I don't think that your tax dollars should go to paying you more money than the average.
Now, there's a
income.
downside to that, right? So if you're the county manager, instead of having to work with 5 county commissioners, now you might have to deal with, I don't know, 10. Well, actually, it would probably be close to the same amount in my county, because I think my county might be about this. No, actually, I think they got less residents, so it actually might be more than that. But now you might have to deal with a double amount of county commissioners. And I would imagine that there would be some struggles you would have to deal with, because you're trying to get all of them on the same page.
That's why the manager makes so much money.
True.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to put the same other
yeah.
side of the argument, but
Yeah.
that's something to think about. I mean, but yeah, I agree with you. For the county, I think the only people that should vote for the county commissioners is the people that live in that district.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, like if you were to, I think you'd get a higher turnout rate for voters,
Yeah.
because you're going to have guys that actually have to get out there and put their feet on the pavement, actually have to do the work.
Right.
And it's not just going to be based on how many signs you can put around. It's not going to be based on how much money. Like, you're actually going to have to get to know the people, because think about it. That's the numbers that I wanted, by the way. When I went to this, I can't remember if they gave it to me or not. I don't think they got them. I don't think they can produce them. They can. I'm sure they can. I'm talking out of my ass at this point. But I would actually like to see how many people voted for me in my district, and the district that I was running for.
They might be able to.
They probably can. I've always. And then you look and see who voted for me in this district, and that district, and this district, and then go through all
That'd
of
be
them.
a good study.
And then analyze it and see, all right, where do you have the most signs at? Where were most of your donors? Where were their businesses? And then you can literally sit there and analyze it all the way down, and then you go, well, that's what the people wanted, but it's like, that's what the people were told.
Right.
Because that was what was on the side of the road. That's what was being shown on WJHG, WMBB, or anything like that, or through commercials. It's if there's one thing that I think, Mr. Thompson got right when I was running. He came to one of my campaign events, and I asked him, I said, "You think I got a shot?" And he was just like, "You don't have a chance, dude." And I was just like, wow. He goes, dude, this is he told me, he's like, dude, this is a money game, man.
It is. Now, if it was where the only people voted for you in that district, maybe the money thing wouldn't be as big of a thing. I never really thought about that till we were talking about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's why it is it would not be a money game if it was done by district.
Yeah.
And then, I
think it'd still be an impact, but I don't think it'd be as much of an
think about
impact.
this right now. I know for a fact, you were just talking a second ago about a district. I spent some time in one of the districts because one of my buddies was like, hey, I'm going to try to raise you some money, and we're going to go hit some doors. And in this particular district, every single person talks so much trash about the county commissioner that's over their district. And they say, that guy does not care about this area. He keeps allowing money just to go to the beach and go to the beach and go to the beach. And you haven't done anything you've done nothing for this district. And they say, and I said, well, that's why it's so important to get out there and vote him out. And it's like, we can't.
Right.
Because this district, we don't support him. None of us are voting for him. But because he's got the money, and he can run it through the other areas of the county, he'll keep getting reelected.
And I'm wondering I don't know if you know
Or keep
this,
getting elected.
but there's, I think they call them chartered counties and non-charter counties.
Yeah.
And I believe we're a non-charter,
non-charter.
county, which means we
The
have to
state-
fall under whatever the state dictates. So I don't know if the state dictates that or not. Not sure. But
Yeah, I don't know about that particularly, but I don't, after running for office and kind of learning a little bit about local government, I don't know if I like the fact of being non-chartered. There's some upsides, there's some downsides.
there is.
The upsides are the pay.
Is it?
Yeah, so the pay is dictated, because I got that wrong. If you want to, you want to hear a funny story? When I was running for office, I was going around telling. I'd been told by some people that the county commission voted to have an increase in their salary, and I was repeating it. I was just going around saying it. If anybody should have known that, it'd be like Ron Keel doesn't do his research, because that's something you just don't go around saying unless you got the proof. So I went around saying that, and dude, Tommy Ham could have murdered me on that.
Yeah.
He could have absolutely said, in that first forum that we had at the college, because I was already dying. Like, I did not know what I was like. I don't know what's going on. Like, there was a lot of lights. There's a lot of people in here. You were there that night, and I died on stage. I looked bad, but if Tommy would have wanted to kill me, that would have been the night to do it, when everything was televised. And he could have literally said, he goes, "You got a young man that's over here that doesn't even know how, salaries work with the county, doesn't even know how pay works, doesn't understand the budget, doesn't understand." He could have hit me.
So, this is something I always wonder is, how much do you think the forums make a difference whether someone votes for you or not? Do you think it makes that much of a difference?
In the county race that we are talking about right now, no. I don't think that they have a damn thing to do. And the reason why is because it's going to come down to that money and those signs and that
All right,
advertisement.
what about the city level?
At the city level, I'm going to be honest with you. I've never seen anybody leave one of these forums or debates and go,
I think people
I don't look at that guy the same way anymore. You know what? I look at that guy.
I think that happens somewhat, but I think for the most part, I think people have made up their mind, but I could be wrong. Be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that.
So, like, Ed Young, dude, I hated that guy. When I was sitting there. Oh, yeah. No, I told Ed. Ed laughed. Ed, right out there in the vestibule. Yeah, he laughed because I was like, dude, when I first saw you. Well, you know what then? Then it proves that it does. Well, no, it proves that it doesn't. Wait, hold on. I'm like having to think about it.
Hey, it's your story, man.
Hold on. No. No, I told Ed, I was like, dude, I thought you were a douchebag. I hated you, like, all the way to your core. Like, when I saw him that first forum, when he got up there and how he was up there and just angry on the microphone. And then, dude, he came here. Yeah, man, dude. That dude.
I'll be honest with you. I think.
Yeah.
I think Ed Young sounds like, a good guy.
He's a good dude.
But I think where him and Demetrius screwed up.
And they hitched their wagon to the freaking dock.
Yeah, I think that's what hurt them. But
I didn't want to.
Yeah. Ed was here for a long time. How do you rig a debate?
Well, not the debate. It was.
the questions.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things. It's like, how do you rig a debate? The only way you can rig a debate is
If you know the question, that would be the only way.
yeah. It's just
I
like
can honestly tell you, I never knew any of the questions.
Yeah.
At any of the debates. I probably had a good idea what they're going to ask me.
Yeah.
So I was prepared for a lot of them, or tried to anyways.
Well, getting back to what you were saying, though, you were talking about Demetrius and Ed hitching their wagon.
I talked to Demetrius a little bit. He seems like a good guy.
Demetrius is a very nice guy. The thing that killed Demetrius and the reason why he just never had a shot from the very beginning was because of the knowledge of the area.
Yeah.
When he came on the show, I grew up.
Pretty young.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't. It's not a young thing.
No, but what I'm saying is, he's he'll be able to learn a lot from this
Yeah,
experience,
yeah.
and hopefully he'll stay involved.
Yeah, he raised a lot of money too.
Did he really?
Yeah, he did. But here's the other thing about what I was going to say was I grew up in that ward. That's where I grew up, at all of St. Andrews.
Yeah.
And whenever I asked him specific questions about that ward, he didn't even really know. I don't even think, I would be surprised if he knew the lines. I mean, he probably does, like, on a map, but, like, are you actually going to be able to drive there and you're going to really know your ward? I don't think he didn't really know much about the businesses. And then it was just like, yeah, I mean, but he wasn't from here. He's from Atlanta. So, I mean, I get somebody wanting to jump in and do their part in the community. There's nothing wrong with that. But you definitely need to figure out where you stand. You know, Josh grew up here. I'm pretty sure he lived in that ward while he grew up here. So, I mean,
You know, it's funny because the first time I decided to run for office,
and you're from New York.
they said I was going to have a hard time winning getting voted in because I'm not from here.
But you knew
But,
the area.
But I think it was a different time. I think when they told me that, it wasn't necessarily an incorrect statement. It was at that time,
Yeah.
but I think normally that's true. And so, but remember when I ran, that whole federal indictment was going on. There was a
Yeah.
lot of distrust in the city. And so here you have an outsider coming in saying, hey, I have no ties to any of these people. And I think a lot of people saw that and they were like, yeah, we need someone like that. And being a veteran helped a lot too.
Yeah.
That helps a lot. And so, yeah, so I proved him wrong, you know, so,
Yeah.
but I think typically that's true. I do.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right on that aspect. And I didn't even talk to you about that. And I didn't bring that up at all. But, like, you were on the commission directly after all of that, right? Like,
The
you had
federal
run-
indictment was still going on when I got on the commission.
How big of an impact has that played on you being on the commission, though? Like, having to deal with all that type of, because it seems like people are crawling up everybody's ass with a microscope.
I tried, for the most part, I tried to just set that stuff to aside and say, you know what, is this really gonna help me be, you know, make certain decisions for the city? And that there's some things, yes, but for the most part, I'm like, I can't change any of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, whether I agree with it or disagree, and I have my opinions on it. But the big thing I probably learned the whole thing was our processes. That's why I was kind of adamant of, hey, we need to change this process. So, like the financial review board, I was big on that. That was I got in a pretty heated discussion. But I think we need mechanisms like that for the city to help protect the city, you know? And I even said this, I don't think anybody's doing anything illegal or unethical at the time. And so, but if we don't put certain mechanism in place and you don't learn from your past history, you're going to repeat it again, you know? And there's other things like, you know, I'm sure you know this, but that's why I'm big on the city clerk thing. I don't understand why we don't have a city clerk. I think almost every city in Bay County.
Isn't the argument that they steal money?
Well, so I think the argument he was trying to make is no matter what mechanism you put in place, if someone's a criminal that's going to try to steal money, they're always going to find a way. But you still, and there's no 100% perfect way, but is it worth to spend the money to do that? And I think so. You know, because you know who the city clerk is? City manager. So I have issues with that. And I
You
think
want checks and balances.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I talked about before with the balanced triangle, right? So the way our federal government's set up, and I hate to use it as an example because, you know, our federal government has its issues, but, you know, you have the executive branch, which is the president
Mhm.
and its staff. And then you have the legislative, which is Congress, you know, your state and or your representatives and senators that set policies and the budget. And then you have the judicial branch, which, you know, interprets the Constitution, makes sure they're doing everything legally and per the Constitution. And in the city, you know, the executive branch is like the city manager, right? And then the legislative branch is like the commission where we're setting the policies and the budgets. But this is the part over here where we're missing. I'm not saying we need a judicial system, but having a city clerk, I think, is in a really good position to help keep those checks and balances in place because they see a lot of the stuff go through them. And if they know something's going awry, they're in a really good position for that. And I've talked to other cities. I've even, not just locally, I've talked to other cities down south. I remember the first time I started calling city clerks about this. It wasn't the answers I was getting. I was like, this isn't making sense. And then I finally figured it out where the answer they were giving me, because one of the questions I asked is, do you think it's better for a city clerk to be under the commission or under the city manager? And the answer they would give me was whatever they knew. And normally most of the ones that I talked to, or the vast majority, they only knew one style. But then I found probably, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen or so that have done both. And that's where I got the most vital information from, where I was like, which one do you think is better? And unanimously, all the city clerks were like, it's under the commission. And they talked about, you know, having those checks and balances in place. So like you look at Callaway, they got their own city clerk and it's under the commission. So, but you think about, and this is the point that I brought up with the city clerk before, is you look back when Michael White was city manager. If you were a city clerk under Michael White, how apt would you be to come out and say something was being done illegal or unethical? You probably wouldn't, because you're in fear of losing your job. But if you worked under the commission, you better come out and say it, because we need to know about it. You know, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I got questions about that one.
Sure.
Never going to get them answered. Nobody's ever going to be honest about it.
Sure.
'Cause it sucks. But Jamie, as always, dude, I love having conversations with you.
Yeah.
It's been freaking cool. I actually wanted to talk more about your personal life, like growing up in New York and you know how you got here and stuff, but I'd like to have you back on for that type of conversation.
Yeah, we could do that.
Set that up that way, you know, that's the thing about, man, dude, and I'll say this, and Kendall, and when we started having politicians on, well, because this was originally supposed to be for business owners, and, you know, I kind of made it political, but it wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be bringing politicians on and talking about their actual life. You know, where'd you grow up? What did you do for a living? What do you do for a living? Tell me about your family. Talk about things that matter, that are big in these people's lives, and then you're able to throw it out there in the public area and be like, this is who this person is. You know, quit throwing stones at them saying that they're some illegitimate, you know, corrupt person. I get it. People can paint a picture of anything. And but the point of it is people were supposed to be able to look at a podcast or the person that I had on and being able to make the decision for yourself on whether or not that's a genuine human being or not.
So can I be honest with you?
And it has definitely gone the opposite direction.
So can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
So I remember, because we had the conversation about me coming on before the election.
Yeah.
And I kind of turned it down because, and actually I think you brought it up initially, and when I thought about it, I was like, yeah, it's probably not. I didn't like the idea of coming on because I didn't feel like I could just be myself because I was in campaign mode.
Yeah.
You know? And so that was one thing. Two, yeah, you're right. I think when you have people on here, it's just have a drink or whatever and just BS. and get to know the person. I think that was your whole idea at the beginning.
Yeah, it was.
And you can still do that, you know?
Yeah.
I know I'm all for, putting this out there on YouTube if you want, but if you don't and you want to change it, and I can come back and we can totally do this where you just get to know me.
Yeah.
And if you want to change it, I have no problem doing that.
I think that a lot of the information that you gave me this evening or this afternoon, this evening needs to be out there.
Okay.
But if you don't want it, I won't.
No,
do it.
I'm good with it.
Okay. Because I think there's a lot of people that have a misconception about a lot of things that are going on right now, and they tie you to things just so they can get their clicks. And I'm not. I
Oh,
don't,
you mean as far as on clicks on the videos and stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. And my whole thing is
I thought you meant clicks like groups of people.
No. Clicks as in like you throw up something that's like saying something like Jamie Warrick is for the recall, or
Right.
Jamie Warrick is pushing for to fire someone or whatever the whatever it may be tomorrow. Who
Right.
knows what it's going to be?
You know me, I'm normally straightforward and honest with, those type of things. And some people might not like me for it, and that's okay. We can have differences of opinion, and maybe you can convince me otherwise, but I try to be just straightforward with people. Sometimes it doesn't always work out well, but yeah, I think it's better just to be straightforward so people know where you stand instead of them trying to scratch their head going, how does he feel about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But I do appreciate you giving me the time, and
yeah.
And the viewers are gonna watch it and they're gonna do whatever they want with it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
at least they know. Like, that's the thing. Like, dude, nobody watches this show and leaves with. The point is, I don't want anybody to leave the show and scratch their head and be like, I wonder how he actually feels about it. And I was like, like,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, anytime.
Thanks.